What's up? Hey, welcome to my nursery. Don't look too closely. There's still some things I'm working on finishing. I know it looks a little gray, a little drab, maybe a little spooky. That's because it is gray and drab and spooky outside today, but we are gonna add a little bit of color, a few accents, okay? Don't worry. But today we're talking about what I am preparing to try for a natural labor and delivery because I am having a baby, which is still crazy to me. In spite of the growing belly and the changes that I am feeling daily in my body, I don't think it's going to be real to me until I am literally holding a baby. But this will be a part one of a two-part series. So today we are going to be talking about what a natural delivery means to me. We are going to be focusing more on the mindset, the mental, I don't know if admin is the right way to put it, the kind of checklist side of preparation. So things I'm reading, what I am learning, how I selected and assembled my care team, what I will be doing for energy and pain management throughout the process. And then the part two will focus specifically on exercise, as I did make some key changes to my training at 37 weeks. Before I get into it though, I want to say a huge thank you to Seed Daily Symbiotic for partnering with me on today's video. Something we'll talk about later in today's video is what I am doing to set my environment up for success, to avoid stalling or delaying the labor process. And a big part of this means reducing distractions, reducing stress, taking away anything that may be giving me anxiety or just, leading to those little nattering thoughts in the back of my brain. And if you've done any amount of reading of what actually happens during delivery when you're pushing out a baby, you will know that your body is doing a lot of things. There is a lot of pressure in the downstairs. And sometimes when you push out the baby, that's not the only thing you're pushing. Sometimes you also end up pooping, which no shame in that game. We are trying to get out a healthy baby. Like if there's a little extra that finds its way out, so be it. But if I'm allowed to have preferences going into this process, I would prefer not to have a bowel movement with my baby. So something I've been prioritizing going into this is regularity, making sure my digestion is moving smoothly, we are not getting backed up, as constipation was something I struggled with early on in my pregnancy. It's actually part of why I did not learn I was pregnant for so long. If you missed the announcement video, like where you been, it'll be linked down below. But part of why I love Seed and part of why I continue including it in my routine is because it does help with ease of bloating. It can help promote regularity, keep things running smoothly. It's also got benefits for cardiovascular health, skin health, immune function. It is pregnancy and breastfeeding safe. So I've been taking Seed for well over a year before I got pregnant. Throughout my pregnancy, I plan on continuing taking it when I am breastfeeding, because another thing I have heard is that first poop post baby can be a little bit scary. So I want to do everything I can to support my body. Anyways, if you want to check out Seed for yourself, I'll put a link down below as well as a code to save 15% off your first month's supply. So first thing is what having a natural delivery means to me. First of all, I said I'm going to try. Of course, if we run into an emergency, I am so grateful that I live in a first world country where we have technological and medical advances that will allow for the health of me and my baby. I am not going into this with a strict birth plan, but rather birth preferences. I talk about this more in my last video. I'll link it down below. So that's the first thing. But considering I am having a low risk pregnancy and assuming that things go smoothly as we start progressing, I would like to have a minimal intervention, no medication, leave me alone unless I ask for help kind of delivery. By minimal intervention, I don't just mean as it applies to medication, but I also mean in terms of communication, of just like popping in, checking in, that's going on between me and the medical or care team. I want to allow my body to continue progressing, and I want to minimize any distractions or anything that may stop me from progressing. This is not a competition, and I don't think that your definition of what is natural matters as much as what your motivation is behind it. I see so many people getting into arguments over like who went through a worse thing when they were having their baby, or like who's more crunchy or who's more natural, or like people who had natural births bashing people who had what they considered not to be natural births, and vice versa. Like, it's a super weird dynamic online. But I think your motivation is ultimately what matters, because it is you that needs to go through this. It's you that needs to be okay with your decisions. For me, the reason that I have chosen this definition and why it's so important to me is because I found out I was pregnant at 6 months. I had a lot of feelings when I first found out about this pregnancy. I've had a lot of feelings and a lot of things I've had to work through mentally on this journey, but something that has been really important to me in the little time that I had remaining was to experience everything fully. On the flip side, selfishly, regardless of when I found out about this pregnancy, I have always had a curiosity about my body. I mean, that is part of what's driven so much of my fitness journey. When people tell me, oh, it was so painful, it's the worst pain you'll ever experience, it went on forever and ever and ever, I'm like, bring it. Like, I don't know, maybe there's a sick part of my mind, but I think it's the same part of me that's like, one day I want to run an ultra marathon. One day I want to do one of those 24-hour like crazy running laps challenges. Like, that's just something that I find interesting and I think is such a great way, such a great experience to have, to be able to live my life more fully. So once I figured out how I was feeling and my motivation to have a natural delivery, I needed to get researching. Like, regardless of when I found out about my pregnancy, I still wanted to feel confident in what I was doing. And there is a lot of information out there. Like, literally, if you just type pregnancy into Google, it is a freaking mess. If you type in natural delivery, you're going to be served a combination of people's like birth stories, positive and negative. You might end up watching a bunch of YouTube videos, but what you're hearing is ultimately one person's experience through their lens of how they're feeling about that experience. In my opinion, just watching birth stories is not researching. To add another layer of complexity, depending who is putting out that information, like, information can be presented in a biased way. And so I wanted to make sure I was consuming evidence-based information from people who had the same priorities as me of having a natural unmedicated delivery. So the first thing I did was I sought out the help of a doula. I had randomly heard about doulas on a podcast maybe a year or two ago. And so I thought, you know what? I don't really know what doulas do. I've kind of heard them described as fairy godmothers for your pregnancy, not medical professionals per se, but people who support you emotionally, mentally. When you hear people say it takes a village, I see doulas as those women that you would go to who have attended a ton of births, who have wisdom about the female body, about not only what you're experiencing physically, but also mentally, and they are there to support you through the journey of pregnancy, delivery, postpartum, and like beyond, right? So that's kind of what I was going in with. And I just thought, what's the harm in reaching out to a few doulas to see if they're aligned, to see if we vibe, to see if they could even just point me in the right direction of where I should be looking for more education. I got very lucky. Literally the first doula, it's actually a duo of doulas that I got on a call with, we clicked. They're like, yes, that is crazy that you found out you were pregnant at 6 months, but they had every confidence that I would be able to go for the natural delivery I wanted. They are also both super into fitness, so we connected over that, and I felt very at ease with them immediately, especially compared to some of the medical professionals I had encountered since learning about my pregnancy. And while hiring a doula costs money, this was a worthwhile investment for me because I was late to the party finding out about this pregnancy. I was willing to invest in somebody supporting me mentally and emotionally. I'm not from a big family. I don't have like sisters or relatives that are close in age or experience who've had babies. I am the first in my who lives around here friend group to have a baby to go through pregnancy. The other friends I have who have gone through pregnancy, they unfortunately, I wish they did, they don't live close to me. So I was willing to make this investment so that I could feel more confident. So I invested in hiring a doula. Now, the way that they've structured their services, they also had this intensive 1-day prenatal class that Jeff and I could go to. This was like an 8-hour day. It was a full day where we went through everything from the start of pregnancy, what changes you can expect during pregnancy, what you're gonna be feeling mentally, physically, emotionally, so much more in between, but stages of labor, where you can labor, different types of people you can have on your medical team, questions you should be asking at your appointments, options you have. We talked about medical consent, like a lot of things that I didn't even know I should be thinking or I should be researching, but that would be important to achieving this natural delivery that was so important to me. So what that class really helped me do was get a foundation of knowledge, figure out what I knew, but also what I didn't know and where I needed to maybe learn, maybe read a little bit more. 2 sites that come to mind that I've just been loving have been Evidence-Based Birth, as they present relevant, recent research in what I think is a pretty accessible and unbiased way. I actually don't remember how I came across this one, but it's called Spinning Babies. I believe it's actually a technique or teaching system that is often taught to midwives and other people who may be part of your care team. They talk a lot about your baby's positioning and how you can work with your baby as a team during the process of labor and delivery, which was so empowering to me and just like more aligned with how I'm feeling. As I got to researching, I quickly realized that much of what I wanted from my natural delivery would have to be communicated and would probably not be assumed by most care teams. So this is when I started paying more attention to who was on my medical team and how effectively I felt I was able to communicate my preferences and needs. When I found out about the pregnancy, it was me coming from the emergency room, being bounced around the hospital. It was a real whirlwind of things. And in that same night that I found out I was pregnant at 6 months, I was assigned an OB. I didn't think anything of it. There was no real conversation around it. It was just what the attending ER doctor did. And because they assigned me an OB, I figured, you know what? That's what they think I need. Sounds good by me. However, as I started going to my OB appointments, something I noticed is that while my OB was physically present in the room, mentally he was elsewhere. He was checked out. I don't know where he was. I don't know if he was in his mind palace. I'm not quite sure what was going on. No doubt that this guy was proficient at his job, that if I were in an emergency, if there was something that was going absolutely sideways during labor and delivery, like I would put every confidence in him to respond appropriately. That said, once we established that I was having a low risk pregnancy, he just wasn't really doing it for me. I would come with questions, I would come with information, I would come with things I was experiencing and maybe struggling a little bit with, and he just dismissed me. It's not that he wasn't competent at his job, but that wasn't exactly instilling confidence in me that when I was trying for this natural delivery that I would be heard and that he would do his best to meet my needs. It really felt like he was there, he was on his own schedule, and he was gonna deliver this baby, but that was the extent of it. And while I realize your care team is going to depend a lot on where you live, what you have access to, I didn't even know what my options were going in. I just took what was given to me and assumed that because that's what was recommended, that's what was best. I feel like people get very defensive over this, and my choice to go from an OB to a midwife team, like once I switched, it was night and day with how much more supported I felt. Again, because I had a low risk pregnancy, this was an option for me. But if you are not feeling 100% about your OB, if you are not feeling heard by them, I would strongly encourage you to even just see what your options are. Can you, with the risk level of your pregnancy, have a midwife? Could you switch OBs? You can, regardless of which healthcare system you're in, you are the one paying for these services, whether it's through insurance, whether it's through taxes, whether it's through whatever avenue that works through where you are from. And you deserve to advocate for the birth that you want. So know that you have options. Midwives made more sense for me because they were more aligned with. I felt that they had more expertise and more experience with natural deliveries. This is what felt best for my journey. And as soon as I switched over to them, I felt so much better. That was a lot, but now we're at the fun part of the video where we get to talk about the supplies I have been buying, what I have been organizing, and not just for the lead up to labor and delivery, but for when my contractions start coming regularly. It's go time, baby. What supplies I am buying, what I am doing to support myself mentally so that my body can do what it needs to do physically. So I got a big box of things to show you, but I guess the first thing to mention is that my goal is to labor at home as long as possible, because this is where I am most comfortable. I realize that may not be the case if you have other young children at home, maybe you have pets, like we have 3 dogs, but we have a plan for them. Whatever your situation is, I get that that's not gonna be the same for everyone, but the reason I am prioritizing comfort is because until you are pushing, which if you go through those resources I shared, you will know that you are not pushing all the way through labor and delivery. Like there are stages that happen before that, and it is really important, especially during early labor when your body is preparing to get to the stage of pushing, that we are minimizing stress, as stress hormones are going to interrupt what your body is doing hormonally that allows you to continue dilating and continue progressing with labor. This is part of why so often you'll hear the story of maybe a woman is transferred to hospital when she started laboring, and then all of a sudden she hits a plateau or she starts stalling. She stops dilating, and her medical team maybe starts suggesting different things that she didn't necessarily want as part of her delivery to keep things progressing. We want to avoid stress. And when I say stress, I don't just mean like the regular everyday stress you encounter of like, oh, am I gonna get my to-do list done today? Like, oh, that nagging thing that I'm not getting done at work. Like, not that. I literally mean stress can be as small as a change in lighting, like different scents, sounds, unfamiliar people, places. Of course, there are things you can do to make your hospital room more comfortable if you do check in early, but just something to keep in mind. It is so important to protect your energy, especially in those early stages of laboring. So kind of as an extension of this, and something that will make my birth box make more sense, is in addition to having a birth plan or list of preferences that you share with your care providers, whether that's an OB or a midwife team or whatever you got going on, in addition to that, and defining who those people are, I think it's really important to have a birth partner, a co-pilot, a number 2 in the room. So for me, that's going to be Jeff. This could be your partner, this could be a parent, this could be a sister, this could be your best friend, this could be whoever you trust and you feel most at ease with. So defining who that is and then giving them an additional guide. I don't think we need to go around handing out pamphlets to everybody in the room of what we want out of our experience. I mean, that's fine if you do, but in addition to that birth plan, just kind of giving a guide to your birth partner for things that aren't necessarily medical decisions, but fill in the gaps that maybe weren't addressed in your birth plan. So I've literally been keeping a running note on my phone. I'm gonna properly type this up and organize it for Jeff, but I just kind of went through some things that he can do to help keep me comfortable, to help support me during delivery, because something that he has expressed to me throughout pregnancy is that he is jealous in some ways that I get to carry the baby. As much as it took 2 people to create the baby, it is an unequal load that you must bear throughout pregnancy. And of course, the final stage of labor and delivery is very intense for one person, and the other person can sometimes feel like they've been left hanging and don't entirely know what they should be doing. So I put together a little guide, so there was no guessing, no stressing on his part, that goes through how he can support me directly. So emotional support he can provide throughout the process, as well as indirectly by managing the other people in the room and making sure that the environment is staying in a way that is supportive to me. So I made a list of activities we could do if we need to distract me. So we might make padsicles together. We might make gift boxes for the people attending my birth. I made a little guide of the photos I want during birth, because if you've seen any of the TikTok trends of like photos I get of my boyfriend on vacation and photos my boyfriend gets of me on vacation, just making a step-by-step guide I think is helpful for the guys. I've listed out what motivates me. I am not somebody who likes coaching per se. I don't like people telling me you can do it. Like that type of thing actually just pisses me off in the moment, but I really like visualization. I know this is so cheesy, but like I like watching race footage from like running races. I know it's very weird and very specific, but I know what motivates me. I made a list of things that relax me. So for example, deep breathing in my labor positions with or without an exercise ball, low belly, back and side of hip rubs, like background noise. I love that. I also included a list of things that stress me. So considering I'm going to be laboring at home as long as possible, clutter drives me up the wall. Even little things like seeing like dog fur on the ground. I've been vacuuming obsessively lately, like 2-3 times a day. Maybe I'll share the cleaned up version of this list. Let me know if you'd be interested in that in the comment section down below, and just kind of like the cues that I used to brainstorm, because Jeff was really excited about this idea, as I know he was worried about feeling useless when I am going through this. Getting into our big box of things, let's start by talking about energy management. So I don't think it should come as a surprise that delivering a baby is incredibly taxing on your body, mentally and physically. Mental fatigue is one thing. I think that setting up your environment for success can really help manage this. Making sure you carefully select your care team can really help manage this. But on the physical side of things, there is no denying that when you are doing something intensive physically, you need to be fueling your body. Now, depending where you're giving birth, depending who's on your care team, there are sometimes mixed messages given about what you should or what you are allowed to be eating and drinking. From what I've read, the main reason that they put restrictions on what you are eating or drinking when you're in a hospital setting is because if you need to go in for emergency surgery, like an emergency C-section, you can't have a ton of food in your system. The more I've read, the more stats I've looked at, the more questioning I am of how many C-sections are actually an emergency, and whether or not it's actually beneficial to be restricting what low risk pregnant women should be eating and drinking. You can look it up for yourself. There's lots on that in those resources I linked down below. But understanding that my goal is to have an unmedicated and minimal intervention delivery, and understanding that what often causes women to change plans if they've been planning a natural delivery is that they've started stalling, right? Their body has run out of energy. They're no longer progressing. Maybe they choose to get an epidural because they just need to relax. They just need to have a nap so they can come back with more energy. Maybe they end up getting induced or augmented because their body has just run out of steam. Of course, it's great that we have the modern advances in technology to have access to these things, but I am trying to set myself up for success with the birth that I want. So I will be fueling my body like an athlete. A lot of sites will just tell you to pack non-perishable, no refrigeration needed things, but I saw some like very sketchy recommendations on these lists, like beef jerky, trail mix with a ton of like M&Ms and nuts, things that are not exactly going to digest easily. And I do feel lucky that I did so much running before pregnancy, because I started experimenting with fueling my body mid-run, and I can confidently tell you there are certain foods that you should not be eating when you're trying to function at a high intensity. They're gonna upset your stomach. They're gonna take a long time to digest. They're gonna distract you. They're gonna take you out of your zone. Things like high fat trail mixes that have a ton of nuts, have a ton of like candy or M&Ms in them, while they might be good for getting calories into your body, there's a good chance they're also gonna upset your stomach. And when you got a lot of pressure going on down there, the last thing I wanna be doing is throwing up or, you know, having something else going on. Same goes for beef jerky. So what I have got by way of snacks are these Cliff energy blocks I have used before for running, for hiking, for just like throwing in my bag and packing. These ones have a bit of caffeine, but I believe they also have electrolytes in them, and they're just like really delicious gummies. I'll be linking everything that I am showing you in the description box down below. So I've got some gummies, they're delicious. I've also got these sun-ripe fruit bars. I don't know about you, but these bring back so many memories from like packing my lunch as a kid. I ate so many of these, and I like these because I think they're just pureed and dehydrated fruit. There's not a ton of sugar, there's not like a ton of additives, there's not a ton of fiber or anything that should upset your stomach or slow down your digestion. This combo is kind of random, but I swear by it when I am sick, when I'm recovering from a flu. That is what I've got by way of snacks. Of course, I'm going to try to have regular meals in the days leading up to having my baby, but because I don't know when baby will decide to make their big appearance and kickstart this whole process, those are what I'm planning on having on hand for like once things are going. I'm also packing my electrolyte mixes. I think you guys have seen me talk about them on this channel before. It's the Element brand. I really like them. Again, there's minimal ingredients, nothing artificial, nothing that upsets your stomach, and it's just a really good way to make sure that you are staying fully hydrated, because just drinking water is not going to hydrate you. It's about having the right balance of fluids to minerals in your body. So packing those as well. Next thing we're pulling out of our box are the tools that I will be using for pain management when I am laboring. So something I have found really interesting is the gate theory of pain. I will link a more in-depth article in the description box down below that goes over the science of it. It has some really cool diagrams that I found helpful for just visualizing this whole thing. But basically it describes a gate mechanism where if the gates are open, pain can be perceived by your brain, whereas if the gates are closed, pain will be restricted by your brain in some way. And so my understanding is that if you experience a painful stimulus, that will open the gate, but there are other stimuli that you can apply that can help to close some of those gates and reduce the pain that you're feeling. Other stimuli include using things like gentle massage, hydrotherapy, or getting into a bath while you are laboring, using acupuncture or acupressure techniques. So if you've ever heard of people using birth combs, I was gonna order birth combs, but I didn't think I'd be using them a lot after having the baby. So I got these acupressure, you may have seen these, I don't know if the camera's gonna focus. Some people use them for active release as part of their warm up or cool down workout routine, but they're like the size of a lacrosse ball and they have little spikies on them, and I like them because I can grip them easily in my hand, but I can also like roll them on different parts of my body to distract me from what I'm feeling, and they feel really nice. Like I really like putting them on my chest muscles, on my legs, on my feet, on my low back, and I'll continue using these after baby. On recommendation of my doula, I also got a heating pack. I already had this microwavable one that is just like, if you've ever had one of those period bag of bean things that you heat up in the microwave. I had one of those. I wasn't gonna buy a new one, but considering that most of the pain that I've been experiencing as baby has continued growing, and from what I've heard about people having back labor, so where you really feel your contractions intensely in your low back, I just wanted to get something that had a strap so that I could secure it. Can you see that now? So that I could secure it and not worry about it moving around if I need to change positions. So I ordered this one off Amazon. Again, I'll put this in the description box if you want to grab it for yourself. I will not be using the TENS machine. I know some people rave about them for while they are laboring. I have used them before for like just muscle related pain around training and stuff like that. I hate them. They make me tense up, they stress me out. So if you are considering different tools that you can use for pain management, I really encourage you to test as many of them out before you go into labor as possible. So I've already tested out, like the heat pack feels good for me. I really like the little acupressure balls. I find them very calming. I feel like I just keep chatting and chatting and chatting because there is so much information that I've learned in such a compressed amount of time. And these are things that I definitely did not know going into pregnancy, like were not even on my radar. And I just want to share all of it with you so that you are not going in blind, but I am gonna cut myself off. So all of those resources, all that important information I mentioned will be in the description box down below. The sites, what I've been reading, what I've been learning, the supplies I've been buying, pretty much all of it is available on Amazon. So super quick shipping if you've been doing things last minute like me, as well as the link to check out Seed. If you want to check out the Daily Symbiotic, there's a code down there to save 15% off your first month's supply. Let me know in the comments if I missed anything, if I forgot to share a resource, or if you would like to see the finalized version of that birth partner guide. I'd be more than happy to put it in like a PDF or a Google Doc or something like that. This is a part 1 of 2 series, so the part 2 of this will focus specifically on exercise and on the changes I've been making to my training after 37 weeks. I think that's it. I think that's all. So thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.